If you're looking for information on how to choose paint colors to buy so that you can bring them into a new watercolor palette, or you're interested in learning tips on how to arrange those colors on your palette, this video is for you. In today's video, I'm going to be explaining what a split primary palette is and why I like going with this method when it comes to preparing new paint sets to work with. Then I'm going to be spilling the beans on exactly what I do to fill in the wells in my new watercolor palette, how I organize my colors, and all of that using a total of 12 tubes from one of my favorite affordable watercolor brands out there, which are Van Gogh watercolors. I'm also going to be creating a color chart with these 12 colors, and I'm going to be closing the video sharing some wet on wet explorations using these different colors, because this is also something that I enjoy doing when I buy new paints. As always, I've included timestamps to the different parts of this video down below in the text section of this post in case you'd like to skip around. All right, let's jump in. I want to explain what a split primary palette is and why I enjoy preparing myself with a palette that includes these colors for painting. A split primary palette includes warm and cool versions of each primary color. If you know basic color theory, then by this point you're already aware that the three primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. This means that with the setup, we begin with a group of 6 colors: a warm and cool version of red, a warm and cool version of yellow, and a warm and cool version of blue. If you've learned basic color theory and the color wheel, then you're already well aware that with the 3 primary colors, we're gonna be able to create a vast range of different colors, pretty much any color that we need. This said, if you only have warm primary colors or cool primary colors, you're going to be limiting the amount of colors that you're able to create by mixing them. I would highly recommend checking out my video in which I explain about the RYB color wheel versus the CMY color wheel. In it, I explain how nowadays there are many artists that enjoy using magenta instead of red and cyan instead of blue in their color wheels. Magenta being a cool version of red and cyan being a cool version of blue. They found that when they use cool versions of red and blue and yellow for their primary colors, they're able to create colors that they're not able to create when they need to create oranges and purples, etc., using the more traditional red, yellow, and blue primaries, which tend to be a little bit warmer or at least middle of the range red, yellow, and blue, which are neither warm nor cool. I go much more in depth into this topic in that video, which I'll make sure to link to down below. But what's key here is just to understand that the temperature of your primaries is going to have a huge impact on the colors that you mix with them. Whether you mix a warm with a warm, a cool with a cool, or a warm with a cool is going to lead to different results, especially when it comes to the levels of vibrancy or saturation or how muted the resulting color mixture is. And this is why it's so important to learn color theory, understand how to tell warm colors from cool colors, and get really comfortable with color mixing. This way, you're going to be able to create more muted, desaturated color mixtures when you need them, and more vibrant, highly saturated color mixtures when you need them. I know that being able to tell between warm and cool colors, I think especially when it comes to blues, can be tricky for people getting started. So here's a very quick explanation. And try to look at a color wheel when I'm explaining this, because it'll make a lot more sense. If you find blue on the color wheel, you'll notice that to one side it has the purple and to the other it has the green. Warmer blues are leaning a little bit more toward the purple side, while cool blues are leaning a little bit more toward the green side. Ultramarine blue is used as a warm blue by a lot of artists, and something like Prussian blue or phthalo blue, they have a teeny tiny bit of green in them. Find yellow in a color wheel and you'll notice that the 2 secondaries beside it are orange to one side and green to the other. Cool yellows are leaning a little bit more toward the green, while warm yellows are leaning a little bit more toward the orange. When it comes to yellow watercolor paint, you're likely going to notice that warm yellows look a little bit more like a mustard color, almost like an orange. Those are warm yellows. And when it comes to red, if you find red in a color wheel, you're gonna find that the two secondaries beside it are orange to one side and purple to the other. Cool reds are going to lean more toward the purple side, and warm reds are going to lean more toward the orange side. It is important to understand that there are different degrees of warmth or coolness that a color can have. And there are also some colors that can sit right in between warm and cool. They are considered to be neither warm nor cool. And something that I always love reminding students is that a color's temperature is ultimately relative because it's ultimately going to depend on what colors have been used around it, what other colors have been used with it. Because sometimes within a certain context, a color can look warmer because of the colors around it, and in other cases, that same color can look cooler because those colors around it are different. We need to remember that we're learning about color in order to use them in combination. We're not going to be using colors in isolation. So the way that I like seeing it is there are warmer colors and there are cooler colors. So back to why I enjoy preparing myself with a split primary palette. By having warm and cool versions of each primary color, I am going to set myself up for success to be able to create every single color that I need. Whether I'm looking for more muted colors, more highly saturated colors, whatever I need, even neutrals. This said, the way that I like setting up my split primary palettes is I start with those 6 colors as a base, and then I add in convenience colors that I really love. And for me, I really enjoy bringing in a warm green. In this case, I'm going to be bringing in an olive green. I also brought in a cerulean blue, which is a light blue that works well for skies. And I also really like having a variety of browns on hand. So for this one, you're going to see me bring in 3 different browns. A yellow ochre, which is going to stand in place for my lightest neutral or brown, a medium brown, which is going to be burnt sienna, and a darker brown, which is going to be burnt umber. And finally, I really enjoy bringing in Payne's gray to darken colors or for very deep dark shadow areas. So in other words, I have that base of 6 primaries, and then I brought in a total of 6 convenience colors. This way, I don't have to use up too much of my primaries to create my neutrals, and things are more practical when I'm creating my color mixtures during my painting process. This said, I really like limiting the amount of colors in my palette and not having too many. Something that really irks me when it comes to watercolor sets, especially when it comes to student grade sets that you can buy, is that so many of them come with white and black. And these are colors that I don't ever use when I'm painting with watercolor. I have another video where I explain why I don't use ready-made blacks, which I'll make sure to link to down below. But it's honestly kind of annoying because those 2 colors could be replaced by other colors that I really use, such as ultramarine blue or a yellow or something. So it's always good to buy individual colors, in my opinion, especially once you know the color wheel and especially once you have gained some skills and have explored and experimented with different colors and have arrived at specific colors that you personally enjoy and use a lot. Okay, so here are the 12 tubes that I have chosen. I have chosen Madder Lake Deep for my cool red and Permanent Red Light for my warm red. My yellows are going to be Permanent Lemon Yellow for my cool yellow and Azo Yellow Deep for my warm yellow. And when it comes to my blues, I'm going to be using Cobalt Blue Ultramarine for my warm blue and Prussian Blue for my cool blue. When it comes to the arrangement of all of these colors in these wells in my palette, I'm going to be making my way from reds all the way to blues on the opposite end, and then I'm going to end with my gray. This palette has 18 wells. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna skip over the wells, especially in the corners, which I find annoying sometimes because my paintbrush gets trapped in that narrow section. I'm just gonna skip over those, and then I'll just leave a couple of empty wells on the opposite end. But I start with my cooler red, and then I move on to my warmer red. I then move on to adding the burnt sienna, which is a reddish brown. And then I continue with the other two browns that I have brought into this palette, which is the burnt umber and then the yellow ochre. I then move on to my yellows, then my green, then my blues, and I finish up with the gray. You're free to set up your palette in whatever order you prefer, whatever makes the painting process easier for you and the effects that you're looking to achieve. There is no right or wrong way here. For me, this order is practical because I keep my complementary colors or colors that are very different from each other separate on my palette. If complementary colors such as red and green or blue and orange start mixing together, we can get a brown or a gray. And neutrals and desaturated colors like that are great if we're actually using them strategically and intentionally, if those are the types of color mixtures that we're looking to use. But by keeping complementary colors separate, we can have a little bit more control and make sure that we're creating our color mixtures intentionally. We also have to stay mindful when we're actually creating our color mixtures in those mixing areas on our palette. You might have seen some artists mix the warmer colors on one side of their mixing area and cooler colors on the other side. This is helpful as well. It helps you stay in control because if warm colors and cool colors start mixing together, you can also accidentally create browns or grays. All right, so this is how my wells ended up looking. I allowed everything to dry for an entire day, and this is me the following day, starting with my swatching process. As you can see, I've already created a little chart for myself, which I'm going to be filling in. Every rectangle has the name of the paint color as well as the paint color's pigment code. These pigment codes can be found on the tubes, along with each color's light fastness and opacity. I also created a black line or scribble with a black Sharpie just to have a better understanding of each paint color's opacity or translucency. If I can see the black Sharpie line very clearly after the paint color has dried, this means that paint color is fully transparent. And if I see a little bit of chalkiness or the paint covers up a good portion of that black line, this means that that paint color has opaque qualities to it. I'm going to make sure to use the same consistency for all of these paint colors when I'm creating those puddles before painting in that swatch. I'm also going to make sure to completely rinse out my paintbrush bristles before dipping my paintbrush into the next color, and I'm going to make sure to change my water as I go. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, Van Gogh watercolors are one of my two most favorite affordable watercolor brands. The other one being St. Petersburg White Nights watercolor. I can get both of these at pretty affordable prices here where I live, as well as online. Let me know in a comment below if you would like to see me swatch out paint from St. Petersburg White Nights, and I'll prepare that video for you. Winsor & Newton's Cotman watercolors are also a student grade affordable option that a lot of people enjoy, but I personally prefer these other two brands, and I find it very practical that I can very easily buy individual tubes or pans. I love the color options, I love their vibrancy, I love how easily they blend and mix together. All colors that I have used have a great color payoff, and I've never been disappointed. I do have another palette set up, which has colors from Winsor & Newton's professional line though, which I do really enjoy. But one of my objectives behind setting up this palette was to have a practical and more affordable palette that I could work with when creating paintings and tutorials. Van Gogh and Rembrandt are the two options that Royal Talens provides in terms of watercolors. Van Gogh is their student grade line and Rembrandt is their professional line. And if you've ever wondered what the difference is between student grade and professional paint, student grade paint usually has more filler in it and less pigment. This said, you might be surprised by how beautiful and vibrant and the great results that you can arrive at when you use good quality student grade paint. Royal Talens is a Holland-based company that produces paint and other art supplies, and according to their website, their Van Gogh watercolor line is a student and artist level range of paints that features brilliant, transparent, and intense colors with high tinting strength. Most of these colors are rated with the highest degree of light fastness, which means that they won't fade over time. Thanks to the purity and uniform viscosity in these paints, they are easy to work with and easy to mix. These are 10 milliliter tubes, which are larger than the ones from Winsor & Newton's Cotman line, and these tubes are currently $3.58 through Blick Art Supplies. This half pan set that I'm sharing right now is the first set from Van Gogh that I ever got. This is their 24 color botanical set, and I got it through blick.com. It came with a size 6 round brush, which is pretty cool, and a little sponge. A few years ago when I got this set, it was around $36, I believe. I cannot find this exact set on Blick anymore, but over on Amazon, it's currently around $55. To finish up this video, I want to share some more explorations that I did after swatching out my different colors and preparing that color chart for myself. Mostly, I want to see how these colors react with each other, and I want to see how this paint lends itself for wet on wet effects. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be quickly painting in a base color, then I'm going to remove that color from my paintbrush bristles, and I'm going to quickly place another color over it while that initial layer is still wet, so that I can see how that second color expands and blurs into that first color. I also want to see what happens when I mix together burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue, which is a color combo that I love using to make grays. I think it's so important to play with your paint colors because ultimately when you're creating a painting with them, you're going to be mixing them together and creating different effects with them. And I really wanted to share these explorations in this video so that you can get a better feel for the quality of these paints. Alright you guys, that is going to do it for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you found it helpful. And if you did, pretty please make sure to give this video a thumbs up because it really helps support the work that I am doing here on YouTube and helps others get to know about my channel. Thank you so much for watching today. Don't forget to subscribe and click on that little bell so that you can be notified of when I share my new videos, which happens every single week. Have a beautiful rest of the day and see you soon. Bye guys!